Good afternoon, everybody. We're here with Andrew Morton,
Hey.
who is the Director of Social Engagement for Society of Human Resource Management, which is an affiliate of Council for Global, well, we are an affiliate. Council for Global Immigration is an affiliate of SHRM. And my name is Katie Rudolph, and I work with the J1 Visas. And we've got Kathleen here, who is also on the J team, who is doing the camera work for our second Instagram Live. So you'll have to bear with us a little bit. This is very new to us, but we're excited. We're excited to learn a little bit more about how we can use social media to professionally, really without losing our personality. So Andrew's here to help us with that a little bit. And so maybe if we can just get started, if you'll tell us a little bit about what is social media.
Yeah, right. I'm trying to figure it out myself. I'm told that there's no experts in two particular things. One is parenting and the other one is social media. It's like you know what you know relative to where you are. But I think it's also important, you got to define things. And first of all, it's going to be really hard to follow up the pumpkin bread that you guys did on the last one.
If you missed it, our first Instagram Live was how to make pumpkin bread before Thanksgiving. So we hope you had a delicious, you made some delicious bread, but here we're doing something a little bit different, and I think it's going to, yes, it will be hard to top, but I think we can really
I'll give it
do
my
a pretty
best
good
shot
job.
without burning it.
Yeah.
So everybody has probably a little bit of a different definition of what social is, and I get an opportunity to go out and to meet our SHRM members a lot, and we talk about social media relative to human resources and talent management. Some say it's communities, other people say it's about ultimately kind of connecting and bridging thousands of miles, and other people say it's technologically driven and it's about sharing images. And I think all those things are true, but I like to try to turn things on their head sometimes and really ask and remind ourselves what social media really isn't, because I think in that answer is kind of the essence of how to be successful. And so, and I understand that the audience may not be able to really see this, and I can't believe I'm bringing PowerPoint to Instagram, but these are images, so bear with me. So yeah, there's a lot of technology in social, and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and even WhatsApp. I found out the other day, I was in London at a conference, and the typical European between the ages of 18 and 32 is subscribed to no less than 24 WhatsApp groups. So it's like our group texting, right? Multiple. My son is 15, and he's in like multiple group texts. But so regardless of where you are, yes, it's about platforms and technology. But what it really is too, Katie, is the fact what social media isn't is it's not just technology. 4G technology, our mobile phones, our devices, Androids, whatever, Apple, iPhones, they all enable us, but they don't necessarily capture the spirit and the essence of what social media is. And also, I think it's important to remember, no matter what, that the platforms themselves are not meant to be a substitute for in-person relationships. Yeah. Down here, I've got this little picture of a bunch of people communicating with each other. We talked a little bit about this, and we can talk some more about it. Whether you meet somebody online first and then foster that relationship through an in-person connection, like maybe that's your next boss or the next person you hire, or whether you meet somebody in real life at a networking event, a conference, wherever, and then you go back home or you get on your mobile phone and you send out a LinkedIn request to connect with them or through whatever, depending upon the type of contact. You have to kind of bridge that divide. You can't live within just one domain alone. That's the ultimate truth that I know, is we are not going to go away from technology. We're not going to go back to a world before social media, nor are we going to be, I hope, in my mind, completely online in all of our relationships, because that would be kind of a sad existence too, right? So where's the sweet spot and the balance? And more importantly, perhaps, how do we do it in a purposeful way? Because a lot of people say that the most finite of resources is money. Time is probably, in my opinion, the most finite of resources.
Absolutely.
Where do we spend our time online? And so to remember that we also have to have a plan. And I think you and I, we talked about like the 3 Ps.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, actually, let me first interrupt just a little bit, because one thing I meant to say was, if you have any questions, please just send them through. I guess you just comment, and Kathleen will read them to us, and we can address them in real time. But back to what you were just saying, most of us are on social media personally, and whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we follow things we like, that we're interested in, and for those of us who want to make that switch to using social media professionally, which is really kind of the way of the world these days. We've got to find a presence. If I'm really interested in different tips that you have. I mean, I have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't really know how best to use it. I mean, I go to conferences, and I take the attendance list, and if I don't meet somebody, then maybe I look them up on LinkedIn, because we're all at the conference together, and I add them. But I don't really know how to best network with these people, or how to build my profile, or really what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
Well, we're all. But again, back to the original premise that no one's an expert. Anybody who says they're an expert is like somebody who says they're an expert in parenting, that they're always perfect, and they're never wondering what to do and how to do it right. So you're in a boat with a lot of people, including in many cases myself. So, and again, I like to try. I think things in life aren't necessarily complicated, they're just difficult sometimes. They're hard to do. Whether it's getting up and running and working out in the morning, or whether it's eating right, or whether it's saying no to our kids, or our friends when we know we got to be doing something more productive. That's all not complicated, it's just hard sometimes. And I think social's like that. So I think I've developed the rule of the 3 Ps in order to take yourself from personal to professional on social, without losing your personality. So that's a lot of P's there, but at least in the English language. I don't know how it would translate in German. But so remember the 3 rules. And really the first rule is have a purpose. Even if you're on social for a personal reason, even if you're on dating sites, there's a purpose behind that. I would hope that you meet somebody that ultimately you're looking for a relationship. So even the most personal type of venture on social should have a specific purpose. Let's say if you're a J1 visa holder, and you're there with a corporation, and you're building on what's going to be an awesome 3-decade career, you should have a purpose to be on social, and it should be to become more visible, to network with people, to make connections, to ultimately help foster that next opportunity, or to make the current opportunity better. And that's and to also become more proficient within your particular field. So the first one is, and this is very rudimentary, get out a cup of coffee or a tea or a beer or a wine or whatever, put a blank piece of paper in front of you, take a pencil and say, what is my purpose? In 3 bullet points, what's my purpose on social media? And I think for professionally, I think really the goal is to network, to become more proficient in your field, whether that's industrial engineering or communications. And then the third one really is to really solidify your ties for your next job. The second one is then, okay, now I know what my purpose is. Now I need a plan. Here's the problem sometimes. We put our plan before our purpose. We are out there. I try to tell people that posting on Facebook or even a Facebook page is not a strategy. It's a tactic that's at the end of a well thought out strategy if it's right for your organization. So a lot of people will come up and say, I need a Facebook page, or I need to be on Twitter, or I need to be on Instagram. But then you have to ask them, why? Right. Why do you need that? Why do you tell me why to do? So the plan comes after the purpose. But the plan is not easy, because the plan involves actually following through. And it involves being patient in some cases, and it involves making decisions and having priorities. And listen, I would love for SHRM as an organization to be on every social media platform out there, but we can't be, nor can an individual.
I mean, but then you know, I feel like there's a new social media platform that's developed, you know, every other day. It's
right.
like,
yeah.
you know, I mean, so it's, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. It's, I mean, literally, because you're keeping up with, trying to keep up with people. But, yeah, it's, I mean, I think it'd be hard to do that, and you'd really just have to figure out what, I mean, again, back to your purpose and plan, you gotta figure
right.
out what best suits your, but as an organization, but also as a, you know, person.
Yeah, as an individual.
As an individual. You know,
absolutely.
What's best.
Yeah. And what's best is normally driven by what your goals are.
Sure.
Really, and if your goals are to, again, be more proficient in your profession and be recognized for that, then you have to make conscious decisions about what you do and don't do. We're going to show an example of a woman recently who took her personal persona, turned it into her professional persona, and got in a lot of trouble for it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about, you know, the politics of social media sometimes, and it's not as forgiving a world as I would like it to be fair in some points. And then the last thing is really have a passion. And I think, you know, again, this goes back to the original premise that really lives are meant to be lived offline and shared online,
mm-hmm.
or as I think I said, don't live your life through social, share the life you live on social after you've lived it. So
yeah.
your passion for whatever you do, so you are obviously passionate about specific things that you believe in. One of them is giving J1 visa holders an opportunity to explore the world in a professional way while having some fun doing it. Oh, by the way, too,
yes.
right? That's your passion. That's why we're here today, because we want to help other people do exactly what it is that they're trying to do. When you are on social media, whether it's your own personal Instagram account or your Twitter account or your LinkedIn profile, don't feel like just because you're professional doesn't mean that you can't have a passion for what you do. I think it's important to delineate, to differentiate between having purpose but not losing your passion at the same time. And that's really important.
And I'll have a question about that for you in regards to, you know, that could, for some of us, that could get, you know, a little bit political. So I'm interested to see what you have to say about putting kind of political
sure.
views on your professional sites.
If you're a professional politician, go for it, right? It depends
right.
upon what you do for a living.
Right.
But we can certainly talk about that. I think the example that I have, I think, is a very unique one and almost tailor-made for today's discussion.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So I think we're also going to, let's talk about LinkedIn first.
Yeah. So I was about to say, so like, you know, where do we start? Do we start with Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram? I mean,
yeah.
Probably not Instagram, but yeah, if you can let us know.
So I think I mean, obviously we're doing this through Instagram today.
Yeah.
And a part of the reason we're doing it is because this is where the J1 visa holders live. This is
right.
a part of
for CFGI anyways.
Right. Well, the thing to remember is that when you're an organization, don't create social media platforms that are audience free.
Mm-hmm.
Go where people are in a way that's genuine.
Sure.
And today's discussion is not really about how businesses can, you know, business to consumers, how they can be successful. It's more about how individuals can be successful. But remember, let's just talk about talent acquisition. So much of what companies are doing now on Instagram and on Facebook are visual images, both video and photo, of their employees telling that story.
Sure.
So I bet of the people watching today and of the J1 holders out there, a lot of the organizations that they work for now want them to share that employee story. They want that employee story to be real and relevant to other people like them. So being on Instagram is fine. Your organization may actually encourage you to do that, but it isn't necessarily going to be the place where you build your professional brand.
Sure.
Unless you're Kim Kardashian or someone else who's just really focused on
Which we are not.
Your image. No,
we are not the Kardashians.
I'd like to say that we can try to entertain people, but we're not going to get to that level.
Depending on what you find entertainment.
Right.
I mean,
it's all
relative.
yeah, subjective.
Yes, exactly.
So really there's a couple things to remember about your LinkedIn profile. The first one is a picture says 1,000 words. Mm-hmm. Your image is important. It probably should reflect what it is that you do and the organization you work for. And what I mean by that is, if I told you it should project professionalism, and it should be like a professional photo taken, and you should have your arms folded, and you should be in a business suit, that would be true if you were an account manager at a financial firm. But what if you are an IT specialist? Or what if you are an visual editor? You don't necessarily want your LinkedIn picture to portray something outside of what you are. So people say, well, what's the best LinkedIn picture? I say, one, it depends upon what you do and what it is that your job, and yeah, you gotta fall into stereotypes. So if you're a computer programmer, maybe you should have a pocket protector right here. No, I'm just kidding. But you don't want to be stuffy. You don't want to be stuffy if the field that you're in is not meant to be stuffy.
Right.
You don't want to be overly relaxed if the field that you're in is not really conducive to people feeling comfortable if you're overly relaxed. If I'm looking for an accountant and their LinkedIn profile picture is of them painting something on a canvas, I'm probably not going to feel as comfortable with them as I would with somebody else. The other thing to remember is it should never be a selfie. It should never be you in a very personal setting, partying, doing anything,
or
that.
With your kids.
Or no, it probably. If
you're a nanny.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a nanny, then maybe your banner photo on your LinkedIn could certainly be, with permission, somebody else's kids.
Clearly.
So I think the photo is important. It probably shouldn't be the same photo you have for your Facebook, because that's probably meant to project something to a different audience.
Point.
And ultimately, I think the photo tells a lot. I have an example of my photo and how I'm not doing a very good job, and I want to show you that now. So I'm going to go to the PowerPoint over here just to call it up. But there's this really neat photo site, and it's called photofeeler.com, and it's totally free if you're willing to vote on other people's photos too. But if you go to it, so here's my LinkedIn photo, and to be honest with you, I don't take very good pictures. I don't have any professional pictures. It's a crop picture of actually my daughter was in the picture at her first Holy Communion a few years back. But I've used it for a few years out of, maybe being lazy. And people voted on it, and they said, and there were some comments in there too, you really should be scoring, above 50% where people think it looks influential. And I said, it's for business purposes, and I put the title communications down here. And, I think if I could do this over again, if I do it all, I'd want to be smiling, because as a communicator, you'd want to be smiling. You'd probably want to be in some form of professional business attire of some type, and you'd probably just want to have a little bit more of a professional photo. It's blurry, it's not high resolution. So this was a lot of good feedback for me, and I will ultimately, begrudgingly, probably go out and get a better photo taken for my LinkedIn profile, because this is probably not the best one. For everybody else.
That's a nice photo, though.
Well, again, it may portray certain things.
I'm with likable.
Well,
it is likable.
Well, and as a communicator, you want to be likable. You want to be trustworthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't want to be wearing sunglasses and.
But don't you have a different banner poster?
I do. So the banner poster, again, it's a different image. So I'll cover
Sorry,
the banner.
No, I'm not jumping ahead.
Because there is not just that image. There is also the image that you portray in your banner, and so that is me speaking at a conference, which I do think is probably an important thing to have, because it shows that I'm communicating.
Sure.
Right.
I think that's a great banner picture.
Yeah. The banner photo, I think I would probably score better on, but maybe the image photo, I probably should go back and relook it.
Yeah.
Now, again, for those of us who don't have a million mirrors in our house, or images matter. They portray a story, they tell a story. It's worth taking the time to think about what your image should be. I don't have all the answers. All I can say is you kind of know what right looks like. And if you go to Photo Feeler, you'll see other people's images and what they're trying to portray in their images. And it's kind of a neat tool.
Well, yeah, it gives you some ideas too. Exactly. About what on the Photo Feeler, does it tell you what kind of field you're in? I mean, you said
yes.
Communications, right?
Yes, it'll say like what the purpose is. Like if somebody's using it for business, it'll say business. It'll say if they're doing it for personal. I mean, I don't know. I only looked at other people's photos that were for business. And the only reason I had to vote on other people's photos is because I'm cheap and I didn't want to pay for the subscription. So it's free, totally free.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of free tools out there. I think that people should invest in.
Sure.
So the profile photo is one. Number two is the profile itself. What you want to make sure is, and there's no perfect LinkedIn profile. I'm sure every profile, probably if you were a recruiter, they would be looking at it and they would say, you know, what's this or what's that. But I would say one of the things that I've read from recruiters themselves, who kind of really are best at looking at people's profiles, is it should be complete. Mm-hmm. Meaning that you shouldn't have any huge gaps. So if this is your first job, the J1 job, and you've been an international graduate student previously, before that you were an intern, that's okay. You can show people that. I mean, you know, as I go down through my job profile, and I don't really want to make this about me, but if I go down through my job profile, I've made sure that each job has no gap. So, you know, here I am at SHRM, I've been here for the past, so you just got to make sure when you go in and you edit your profile that you actually add the end date and the start date. Mm-hmm. And if you're at your current job, if you're a current J1 job, then you should probably just have no end date to it.
Sure.
Just have it open until it's done, and then you go in. Now in terms of the narrative, in terms of what you write, nobody wants to read a lot, we know that. But what you should highlight are some of the things that you've done. If you were a graduate student and you earned an award, make sure that award is in there. If you were an intern and you were recognized by anybody in the organization for doing something very effectively, and you have numbers to back it up, mm-hmm. put the numbers in there. This is not a time to be shy about telling people what you can do. I don't ever want people to think that sharing what they're good at is bragging. It's not. But it does bring up another point. Don't exaggerate. Don't embellish, because people are smart enough to figure out the mm-hmm. difference between that. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest, your past employer is probably on this too, and you know, they might take a look at your profile and be like,
I don't remember you doing that.
Yeah, that's
right, exactly.
That didn't happen. So you don't want to be called out by a past employer, especially somebody that you might want to reference from down the line.
That's exactly right. And not that this group would ever have an issue with this per se, because they're relatively new to the market and they're all very successful. If you haven't had the most amenable or friendly of splits from a previous employer, that's okay. Don't leave it out. You got to put it in there. You can't just make it go away. Mm-hmm. You have to in some way, and that's a whole different discussion about how you leave organizations and how you reflect that time. So the big things to remember is, one, don't make it too long. Don't make the narrative too long. Mm-hmm. Number two, make sure that there are no gaps in the narrative, no gaps in your work history. Mm-hmm. And number three is, as much as it might be tempting to embellish and to exaggerate, don't do that. So those are three things to remember about your profile. Great. And then the next part really is connecting with people. Mm-hmm. We talked about offline and online. Every person you meet offline, every person you meet in person that has any relevance at all to you professionally, even if it's not in your field, connect with them on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Don't treat it like Facebook. Don't treat it like, like a personal network where you want to keep it close-knit group of friends. You want your professional network to be wide, open, because it's really the way that you truly network when you need to. Right.
So one question that I personally have is I used to work with a lot of international journalists, and I get the most random requests from international journalists. And I mean, sometimes I guess are maybe just looking for maybe they're looking for my help with a position, but I don't really even know why they connect with me, but I think it's because I used to work with journalists.
Sure.
Do I like accept them? I mean, do I just kind of, do I accept them in my network? I mean, I know we want to cast a large net, but if they aren't relevant to my work or what I think my future work might be, do I still want to add them to my network? Is it worthwhile?
Yeah, well, I would say you never know what the future holds.
Sure.
Unless, the only way I wouldn't connect with somebody would be if I felt that their brand and their persona and who they are is just not conducive with my values.
That makes sense.
That would be about the only thing that would stop me. Even if they're in a field completely opposite of mine, I feel like that there's probably some connectivity there professionally that would be worthy of having that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think each individual is different, but I would say the only thing that should stop you would be if you feel that they're just overtly marketed or
Sure.
they're just not, your values are not aligned. And I know that's hard to say, but I wouldn't just blindly say connect
Okay.
every time.
That's great. I mean, that's actually really great
LinkedIn's
advice.
doing a good job of saying, hey, you just connected with this person. Here's some people that they know that you may want to connect with. And I take the time to look through those sometimes, because I think that they're good. LinkedIn's like Facebook and Instagram. They're growing, they're maturing.
Sure.
So connections are important and recommendations are important, but don't ask for recommendations from people that you only have a very loose relationship with. Make sure it really is that supervisor who you did a really good job for. Make sure it really is that business relationship, a peer per se, that really relied on your expertise. And then of course ask them for an endorsement or for a recommendation. But don't, quantity is not better than quality, particularly when it comes to recommendations. So even if you only have 4 people who are recommending you, it's okay so long as those are people who truly know what your value is.
Now so you can, this is another thing that's interesting
Sure.
about LinkedIn, so you can get recommendations on LinkedIn.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And you can also get endorsements. So there's a difference between endorsements and recommendations. So there's my recommendations down there.
Okay.
Those are like longer term recommendations. But notice I have endorsements here. See all these endorsements?
Sure.
And then people who have endorsed me for these skills. Now granted, recruiters kind of know, but in the aggregate, I'm pleased to know that most of the people who've endorsed me have said strategic communications, public relations, and social media are my areas of expertise. So that's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm doing something right. So, and then the last part really is be involved. Right at the top of your LinkedIn profile, even more important, believe it or not, than your jobs, is things that you may have published and or your articles and activities. Now there's this rule of 99 and 1. 90% of the people are just participating by looking and reading. 9% comment or like or share stuff that they read on LinkedIn through their connections, and 1% write stuff. You don't have to be in the 1%. As a matter of fact, it probably is not the best place to start. Go into other LinkedIn groups, search for groups, look at your connections and see what groups that they're participating in, and then join those groups if it's relevant to you, and then read an article, read someone's post, like it, share it, comment on it. Build your connections. It's like sitting at a long table for dinner with people you kind of know. Find those opportunities to inject in the conversation when appropriate. Add to the conversation. Don't try to take the conversation hostage, but also don't sit there like a wallflower, because then you're not really showing your value.
Sure.
So that's kind of like LinkedIn in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, so I do want to get your feedback on Twitter. We'd said till 3:30, but we might go a little bit longer. So if y'all have five more minutes to stick with us, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Twitter, and then maybe
Sure.
Answer any questions that the audience has.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, so we talked a little bit about LinkedIn and Twitter's next, right?
Yeah, I think so for most people. I mean, you know, again, if you're a visual artist, okay, and you're doing a lot of things, you're a graphic designer or you're an interior designer, then maybe something more visually laden like Instagram might be more appropriate, or if you own your own business, then Facebook. But I think for most people, when they're trying to network, Twitter is the next logical step. Now, here's the things that get you in trouble in social media. The 3 Ps again. They're different than the other 3, but here they are.
So P is like the letter of the day. It's like Sesame Street.
Too prolific. You're tweeting way too much about things that aren't relevant, because if you're tweeting way too much, it's probably not relevant. Perfect. You're projecting an image that's not genuine. And this is particularly true in visual platforms like Facebook or what have you. You know the parents that will take 15 photos of their kids until it's a perfect photo, and then that's all you see. You see them having their perfect day every day, and you're like, why can't I be a better parent? You know, but rather than being vulnerable and saying, look what I sent my kid to school in today. Pretty good parenting, huh? And their hair is all messed up, and you know, it was picture day. Anyway, so don't try to be overly perfect. And the last one is political. Now, political is a relative term, and I understand in Europe it's different than it is here in the United States or America versus anywhere else in the world. And we are in an uber political environment right now. My philosophy is this: if you are on Twitter for a professional reason and that isn't within the political domain, and then your organization is not ideologically encouraging you to be on one end or the other, you best be mindful of the tweets that you send out that have a political undertone or overtone. It's not a good idea, and I'm going to give you an example. So Julie Briskman, a local DC, Northern Virginia woman, was working as a government contractor. It's a government contractor in the social media space. She was probably a government augmentee. She's a purported marketing and social media professional. I use the word professional because about a month or two ago, again, we could spend all day talking about my own ideological beliefs too. The presidential motorcade of 145, President Donald Trump drove by and she flipped them the bird, the middle finger. And she felt it was important enough to show that not only on her picture, but on her banner. And she also did it on her Facebook page too, which is different because that's her own personal Facebook page. But she did this on her banner. Okay, now she's working for a government organization that contracts with the U.S. government.
They didn't like it.
Well, not only didn't they like it, they fired her, and they had cause. Now, you might say morally they didn't have cause,
freedom of speech,
but ethically they did.
Yeah.
They was well within their rights, because I don't know if the current administration is going to be knocking down their door to get things from this government contractor, given her overt political stance against the president. Now, here's the neat thing, though. The neat thing is maybe she found her passion, because I looked her up yesterday, and now she is talking about First Amendment rights. She's doing things within the social space aligned with the Democratic Party on the left-hand side, fighting injustices that she believes our current administration is promoting and perpetuating. So now it's absolutely okay for her to have this, because this is a representation of what she believes and what she believes in.
What she's doing now.
What she's doing now. But it wasn't. So I guess my bottom line is this, and it goes back to everything else in life too. We can feel comfortable at a cocktail party, and sometimes more comfortable than others, of sharing all our personal beliefs. But we really need to be mindful of who we're sharing them with. We have a group of close-knit friends, really, that we may feel comfortable sharing those beliefs with, and it's probably best that you try to keep that close-knit group. If you have other opinions that aren't relevant in the workspace, that aren't relevant to your job, that are more political, you probably should not share them on social media. Now, you may never work for an organization that's not aligned with you politically anyway, so it may not be a relevant point. But I caution people about being overtly political in today's uber political environment, unless that's your job.
Right. I mean, this stuff, what's the phrase? Everything kind of sticks around. Everything that's put out there, you can't really take it back.
No, you can't.
So, I think, Kathleen, do we have any questions?
I'm having problems. It's not loading. So I can't tell if it's actually working or if it's just my phone. Because it seems to have paused, and it seems to have paused in the same space.
Is it paused on here?
No, but it's paused on my phone, and we're down to 2 people watching.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So we might be. This might not be working. It might have. We might have been cut off at 30 minutes, anyways. But hopefully, y'all are still. People are still sticking around and still here. But
well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Andrew R. Morton on LinkedIn.
And I'll share his information. I'll share some of the stuff that we talked about today. But I can't tell you how much we appreciate you talking to us, because I feel like I learned something, and I feel like selfishly I was asking you a lot of questions that were directly related to my profile and how I can better it. But hopefully it helped our audience as well. But Kathleen, thank you for being our videographer, and thanks again. This was a real treat.
Thanks, guys.